Security cameras at Marion Federal Penitentiary captured everything at 6:47 a.m. on June 23, 1992. What was Correctional Officer Bradley Knox planning when John Gotti walked through those prison doors? Why did a 15-year veteran guard think he could break the most famous mobster in America? How did one man's attempt at humiliation turn into the most respected first day in federal prison history? This is the story of when institutional power met legendary willpower, and what happened when respect couldn't be stripped away. It started 8 hours earlier when John Gotti was processed into the most secure federal prison in America. At 51, the former Teflon Don had finally been convicted after beating 3 previous trials. The man who once ruled New York streets was now prisoner 182619053, facing life without parole in a concrete tomb, designed to break the strongest men. But prison officials knew they weren't dealing with an ordinary inmate. John Gotti's reputation had preceded him by months. Stories circulated among guards and prisoners about the boss, who never showed weakness, who commanded loyalty through respect rather than fear alone, who treated even his enemies with a code of honor that belonged to another era. Correctional Officer Bradley Knox had been waiting for this moment since Gotti's conviction was announced. At 38, Knox was a 15-year veteran who took pride in his ability to humble new inmates, especially high-profile ones who arrived thinking their outside reputation would protect them. Every big shot thinks he's special when he walks through those doors, Knox told his partner Officer Martinez during the night shift briefing. Movie stars, politicians, gang leaders, they all learn the same lesson. In here, I'm the boss, not them. Knox had developed a routine for breaking new high-profile inmates. Public humiliation on the first day, usually during the breakfast lineup when the entire prison population could witness the new arrival being put in his place. It had worked on a dozen other notable prisoners, reducing them to just another number in an orange jumpsuit. But Martinez, who'd been working federal prisons for 20 years, had reservations. This guy's different, Knox. I've seen the files. Even the FBI agents who brought him down talk about him with respect. Maybe we should handle this one by the book. Knox smiled coldly. The book says I maintain order and discipline. That's exactly what I'm going to do. At 6:30 a.m., as prisoners lined up for breakfast in the main corridor, John Gotti walked to his assigned position in the cafeteria line. He moved with the same dignified bearing he'd shown in every courtroom, every perp walk, every public appearance. Prison issue orange did nothing to diminish his presence. Other inmates watched carefully. Word had spread that the legendary John Gotti was now among them. Some hoped to gain favor with the famous mob boss. Others wanted to challenge him to build their own reputations. Most simply wanted to see how a man of Gotti's stature would handle his first day in hell. That's when Officer Knox made his move. Hold it right there, 182619053. Knox's voice carried across the corridor, loud enough for everyone to hear. We've got a problem. Gotti turned calmly to face the guard. Good morning, officer. What can I help you with? You can help me by learning the rules. In here you're nobody special. You're not the dapper Don. You're not the Teflon Don. You're just another convicted felon who's going to do what I tell him to do. The corridor fell silent. 200 prisoners stopped what they were doing to watch this confrontation between the legendary mobster and the prison guard who wanted to make an example of him. I understand, officer, Gotti replied respectfully. I'm here to serve my time and follow the rules. But Knox wasn't satisfied with compliance. He wanted complete humiliation. Strip search, right here, right now. I want to make sure you're not carrying any contraband from your cell. The demand was unnecessary and Knox knew it. Gotti had already been searched during processing. This was pure power play, designed to strip away the last vestiges of dignity and respect that surrounded the former crime boss. Every eye in the corridor focused on John Gotti. This was the moment that would define how he would be treated for the rest of his sentence. Submit to unnecessary humiliation, and he'd be marked as weak. Resist, and he'd be labeled a troublemaker who couldn't adapt to prison life. Gotti looked directly at Officer Knox, his expression calm but his eyes conveying something that made the veteran guard suddenly uncomfortable. "Officer Knox," Gotti said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd commanded respect his entire adult life. "I'll comply with any legitimate security procedure you require. But we both know this isn't about security. This is about you trying to establish dominance. And I think you know that's not going to work." Knox felt something shift in the corridor's atmosphere. The other prisoners weren't just watching anymore, they were evaluating. And somehow, without raising his voice or making any threats, John Gotti had turned this confrontation into a test of Knox's character rather than his own. "I don't care what you think, 182619053. I gave you an order, and I'll follow any lawful order you give me. But I won't participate in theater designed to entertain these men at my expense. That's not respect, officer. That's just cruelty." The words hit Knox like a physical blow. In 30 seconds, Gotti had reframed the entire confrontation. Instead of a powerful guard humbling a helpless prisoner, it had become a question of dignity versus pettiness. Officer Martinez stepped forward. "Knox, maybe we should handle this privately." But Knox was committed now. Too many eyes watching. Too much at stake. "You'll do what I tell you, or you'll spend your first month in solitary confinement." John Gotti smiled, not the cold smile of a criminal, but the warm smile of a man who'd found something genuinely amusing. "Officer Knox, can I tell you something? In 30 years of street life, I learned that respect can't be demanded. It can only be earned. And right now, in front of all these men, you're not earning respect, you're losing it." "What are you talking about? Look around. What do you see in their faces?" Knox glanced at the watching prisoners. Something had changed. Instead of enjoying the show, they were looking at him with something approaching disgust. Without realizing it, Knox had cast himself as the bully in this drama. "These men don't respect unnecessary cruelty, officer. They respect strength, fairness, and dignity. Right now, you're showing them none of those things." Gotti took a step closer, lowering his voice so only Knox could hear. "I came here to do my time quietly and with dignity. I don't want trouble with you or anyone else. But if you try to humiliate me for your own entertainment, you'll find that respect isn't something you can strip away with a uniform." Knox felt the weight of 200 pairs of eyes evaluating him. Somehow, in less than 5 minutes, John Gotti had turned his planned humiliation into a test of Knox's own character. A test Knox was failing badly. "Let me ask you something, officer," Gotti continued, still speaking quietly. "What happens after this? You've made your point about who has authority here. Now what? Do we spend the next 20 years fighting each other, or do we find a way to respect each other's position?" For the first time in his career, Bradley Knox found himself actually considering a prisoner's perspective, and he didn't like what he saw. "Martinez," Knox called to his partner, "take 182619053 to his cell for individual inspection. Standard procedure." As they walked away from the crowd, Martinez whispered to Knox, "Smart move, he would have won that confrontation." Knox nodded slowly, still processing what had just happened. How the hell did he do that? He's the prisoner, I'm the guard. "I have all the power here." "No," Martinez replied, "you have all the authority. Power is something different entirely." News of the breakfast confrontation spread through Marion Federal Penitentiary within hours. But the story that emerged wasn't about John Gotti being humiliated or broken. It was about a man who'd maintained his dignity under pressure, who'd turned a moment of potential weakness into a demonstration of character. More importantly, it established the tone for how Gotti would serve his sentence. Guards learned that he would follow rules without complaint, but wouldn't tolerate unnecessary abuse. Fellow prisoners discovered that the famous mobster treated everyone with the same respect he demanded for himself. Officer Knox never again attempted to humiliate a high-profile prisoner for public entertainment. Years later, he would tell new guards that John Gotti had taught him the difference between maintaining order and abusing authority. The man was a criminal, Knox would say, but he was also a professional who understood respect better than most people wearing badges. "He could have made my life hell for 15 years. Instead, he showed me how to do my job better." For John Gotti, that first morning established something crucial. He would serve his sentence as he'd lived his life, with dignity intact, respect earned rather than demanded, and an understanding that true strength came from character rather than position. The breakfast confrontation lasted less than 10 minutes, but its effects rippled through Marion Federal Penitentiary for the entire decade Gotti spent there. Guards who worked with him described him as the most respectful, high-profile prisoner they'd ever supervised. Fellow inmates spoke of him as someone who commanded loyalty through fairness rather than fear. In the end, Bradley Knox learned something that FBI agents and federal prosecutors had discovered during their years of pursuing John Gotti. You could take away his freedom, his organization, and his empire, but you couldn't take away the qualities that had made him legendary in the